consider these premises. 1, Thomas only likes easy graders. 2, any easy grader allows assignments to be submitted late. 3, Percy does not allow assignments to be submitted late. From these premises, if you think about it, it follows that it's not true that Thomas likes Percy. And when you want to show that from a set of premises it follows that a certain claim is not true, you can employ something called Reductio ad absurdum reasoning. How would that work in this case? Well, to use Reductio reasoning to show that some given premises imply that a certain claim is not true, you start by supposing that the claim in question is also true along with all the premises, and then you show that that would lead to a contradiction. So in this case, because we want to show that our 3 premises imply that it's not the case that Thomas likes Percy, we would start by supposing that not only are all of our premises true, but it is also true that Thomas does like Percy, and then you would show that that leads to a contradiction. So let's walk through it step by step. So first, to indicate that we're now going to suppose that Thomas does like Percy, we would write down as the 4th line in our reasoning, Thomas likes Percy, noting off to the right that this is an extra supposition, something that we're now supposing to be true in addition to our premises. Beyond making that note off to the right-hand side, we've also slightly indented this 4th line. And the reason for that indentation is that it serves as a clear visual marker to help us keep track of when we're assuming that our premises plus this extra supposition are all true versus when we're assuming only that our original premises are true. So let me pause for a moment to comment on why it's so important to keep close track of that distinction. So suppose that the following things are true. 1, if the state lottery commissioner has been reading my diary, then the winning lotto numbers are the ones that I guess every week. 2, if the winning lotto numbers are the ones that I guess every week, then I'll soon have $100 million. We can't conclude anything exciting yet from just these 2 statements. All we can conclude is that if the state lottery commissioner has been reading my diary, which sounds like a pretty big if, then I'll soon have $100 million. But now suppose that in addition to those original statements, it's also true, surprise, surprise, that the state lottery commissioner has been reading my diary. From these 3 statements, we can reach the very exciting conclusion that I will soon have $100 million. So there's a big difference between what we can conclude from the original 2 statements alone and what we can conclude when we suppose that that crucial 3rd statement is also true. Because there can be a big difference between what conclusions we can draw from an initial set of premises and what conclusions we can draw once we assume that some further things are also true, we have to keep very close track at all times of exactly what we're assuming to be true. Otherwise, we could easily make a mistake. We might trick ourselves into thinking that we can draw a certain conclusion from our premises when in reality, that's a conclusion we can draw only when some further things are assumed in addition to our premises. So let's go back to our example. We're trying to demonstrate that from our 3 premises, it follows that Thomas does not like Percy. We can use Reductio ad absurdum reasoning to do that. The way that works is we first suppose that in addition to our premises, it's also true that Thomas does like Percy. Because we're now supposing this extra thing is true, in addition to our premises, we shift things over to the right, in effect, creating a new column in which to conduct our reasoning. The things we write down next in this new column of reasoning will be things that we can conclude under the assumption that all 4 statements are true, our original 3 premises plus our new supposition. Now we aim to show that our original three premises plus this extra supposition lead to a contradiction. So, assuming that Thomas likes Percy and that Thomas only likes easy graders, we can conclude that Percy is an easy grader. So in our new column of reasoning, we'll write Percy is an easy grader, which is a conclusion that we can draw from lines 4 and 1. Now, if Percy is an easy grader and any easy grader allows assignments to be submitted late, then we can conclude that Percy allows assignments to be submitted late. So still working in our new column of reasoning, we'll write Percy allows assignments to be submitted late, drawing that conclusion from lines 2 and 5. But line 3 says that Percy does not allow assignments to be submitted late. So lines 6 and 3 together create a contradiction. We'll note that by writing contradiction, which follows from lines 6 and 3. So now we've shown that our three premises plus the supposition that Thomas does like Percy ultimately generate a contradiction. What does that do for us? How does that help us? Well, this is where the magic happens, so to speak. Because if our three premises plus the supposition that Thomas likes Percy lead to a contradiction, as we've just shown, then that means that if all four of those things were true, then a contradiction would be true. But of course, a contradiction cannot be true. So what we just demonstrated is that our three premises plus the supposition that Thomas likes Percy cannot all be true together. We tried supposing that all of them were true at once, and that led to a contradiction. So they can't all be true at once. But if they cannot all be true together, if they make up an inconsistent group of propositions, as logicians would put it, then in any situation where the three premises were true, the statement that Thomas likes Percy would have to be false. In other words, in any situation where the three premises were all true, the statement that Thomas does not like Percy would have to hold as well. So what we've shown is that the three premises entail that it's not true that Thomas likes Percy. So we can write down Thomas does not like Percy in our original column of reasoning, where we're assuming only that our original three premises are true. Because the way that we showed that our three premises have the consequence that Thomas does not like Percy was by making the extra supposition that Thomas does like Percy and then demonstrating that that would lead to a contradiction. We appeal to that whole stretch of reasoning from lines 4 to 7 in writing down line 8. That's an example of reductio ad absurdum reasoning, which we abbreviate RAA.